All right, welcome to Straight Red Card. We got to cover the Super League thing.
Thank goodness we didn't cover it yesterday.
Jesus, because a lot's changed since yesterday. What seemed like something that was locked in and everybody was freaking out.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was going to last for like months. There's going to be lawsuits, everything.
Yeah, and then Chelsea dropped out, and Man City dropped out, and then
the other four.
So Man United dropped out, I guess. I mean, I haven't seen that as an official thing, but I know
the remaining four teams in the Premier League all released comments about how they talk to their fans. They talk to key, members and owners and stuff like that. They decided that they're not going to participate in the Super League.
Maybe they
paraphrasing all four of them, but it legitimately, it almost was copy and paste and substitute a couple words, and they all came out seconds from each other.
Maybe they should have thought of that about doing that before they decided to sign on for this.
I honestly thought they could just roll with it. That's what they probably thought. Like, some fans will be upset, other fans will be fine with it. They didn't realize they're going to get as big of a backlash as they did.
Well, that's just the problem with this thing. This goes to the core of the problem of this. These billionaires don't know average fans. They are so out of touch. They are so tone deaf. They have such an inability to read the room because they're not in the room. They're somewhere else. They're insular. They have their own pocket of billionaire friends that they hang out with. They don't know the room. So when people were saying today, well, they just couldn't read the room. Well, that's because they aren't interested in the room. They're not interested in you or me or soccer fans. So that's why some stupidity like this can happen, where a guy like Florentino Perez can stand up and represent from Real Madrid, the president or dictator of Real Madrid can stand up and be the only voice we hear. And you've got Kroenke and all the Americans, you got Glazer and Henry, and they're all hiding. Is this going to work? Hey, we'll let Perez try it, and if it doesn't work, he'll be the mouthpiece. And if it doesn't go well, we'll just bump out of this thing. And that's what really happened, because they're all cowards too. Mm-hmm. They're cowards. If you're truly a brave person, you're going to stick to your guns. At least, stick to your guns. I'm glad they didn't. But, I mean, you can't read a room. You're an elitist who doesn't know your own fans. And you immediately, cowardly jump out of something you obviously talked about for a while and decided to do the day before. I don't know.
Well, what's funny is just before we got on to this call, I was watching a news report from Sky News, and one of the guys on there, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the guy's name. I came in late to it. He had mentioned how like one of the owners of the Big Six, he didn't want to name names, but one of the owners of the Big Six finally attended one of their games and had to ask somebody next to him which team was his, because he didn't know what color they were. What color their jerseys were, Who
could that be?
I don't necessarily know if I want to believe that, because I feel like you almost have to at least know the colors. Now it's possible maybe they're wearing like an off third shirt color or something like that you were not aware of, but I don't know.
It's got to be Joel Glazer, because that guy's so dumb he doesn't even know the offsides rule. Got to be him. I mean. I don't know. I mean, he's part of the Glazer family, so it's not like he actually earned his. Oh, maybe he did earn it. I don't know, but not going to get into that shit. But he does seem like a fairly unintelligent person.
Real quickly before we get too far into this, do you want to give a quick breakdown as far as what the Super League was going to be?
Yeah. So we got to go back even further in history, Brett, because talk of this has been going on for years. About bringing a coalition of the biggest clubs in the world together. And in fact, it started many years ago, and you had your Chelsea's, Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool, also included back in the day, back when these teams were strong and elite. Werder Bremen, obviously Bayern Munich. Werder Bremen's a joke now. It included Schalke. There was a whole list of clubs. It was sort of a club wish list, and it was a way to threaten UEFA and make sure that the big clubs were still getting the most attention, getting the most money, or as they're calling themselves now, super clubs. And they always kind of hung it over UEFA's head as a threat, like if we don't get a bigger piece of the pie, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're just going to go out and do our own thing. Well, here we are 15 years later, and they finally do it, and there are the original founding clubs of the Super League. We're going to be Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Man United, Tottenham Hotspurs, Inter Milan, Juventus, AC Milan, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, and Real Madrid. And so that's where we were at as far as being the list of original founding clubs. Now we're down to, we're down almost nobody at this point. But yeah. So essentially, yeah, it was these big club owners' way of pressuring UEFA into making sure that they always made UEFA Cup, or excuse me, the Champions League. And, there are teams now like Arsenal who aren't making Champions League because they're f***ing horrible. And they just wanted a way to they want in on Champions League, and they want it on in Champions League all the time. And in fact, they had just gone into this agreement with UEFA, some of these big clubs, and they seem to have gotten their way with an expansion of the number of teams that are going to be in the Champions League. So it seemed like they had gotten their way, and that was supposed to be announced today. But because of what happened yesterday, the bed got shit in, essentially, and everything's a mess. So now we've got these cowardly owners backing out of this, thankfully. And we are where we are. Yeah, so the big joke of this is that really all this was going to be put together just so crappy teams like Arsenal are guaranteed a spot in the big championship every year. That's what this is all about, the Super League. You don't have to earn your way in it. You just get to be in it. It doesn't matter if, say, you were Werder Bremen, who was always in the top four year after year for the Bundesliga, and you're just about to be, relegated last season, you can still get in. Doesn't matter how bad you are. So, yeah, that's where we're at right now, but it looks like it could all be over, but it's not officially over yet, but it looks over.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think it is completely over. You have basically the Bundesliga teams saying no thanks. You had PSG saying no thanks, although I think that had more to do with the World Cup.
Yep.
That's what I've gathered from other people talking about it, so it made sense. I was like, I'll roll with that too. You have England saying we're bowing out. So again, that leaves Spain and Italy, and then if you want to try to reach out to other countries, but I heard Porto even said no thanks, despite the fact that they weren't invited.
Yeah.
So no, I think this is pretty much done with now. Maybe it'll be readdressed later on in life. Maybe they can alter some things and try to come at it from a different standpoint that might appeal more to people. One of the big things that I noticed from people talking is maybe almost like a misunderstanding of what the Super League was going to be, in the sense that people keep bringing up like how Leicester City, went through and won the Premier League a few years back. Yeah. And now that the Super League's doing this, they're basically making it where they can't do that anymore. And maybe it's the concept of the David versus Goliath if the big teams were kicked out of the leagues. But the way I interpreted it is that this was basically the big teams' attempt to replace Champions League and Europa League, but still participate in a domestic league.
Yeah, of course they would. Yeah, they'd still want to do that. But, didn't matter how well or poorly they did. And then this kind of brings me to the whole conversation that Alexi Lalas had on his show with his guy. It's always on his show. I don't remember his name. You'll have to forgive me for that. And Alexi Lalas saying, well, because all the teams make different amounts or have owners who have so many different amounts of millions of dollars difference from one another, that soccer's not a meritocracy. He doesn't understand what the definition of the word meritocracy means. Meritocracy doesn't mean we all start out at the same place. Meritocracy means we might all start out in different places, but we are judged by our achievements. And that's how you get in front of other people in the league or in job, in life, or whatever. That's a meritocracy. Come on, Alexi, at least and look up the word. Look the word up before you start blabbering and flapping your big lips and saying a bunch of crap and gabbing off. I mean, it was frustrating watching his show and watching him say, oh, well, I'll support anything if it creates something better. Well, can't you just see on the face of things, this is not going to be something better? I mean, could you see that? Most people could.
Based off of how, assuming your quote on the meritocracy is accurate, it makes it sound like he was saying that it's not based on meritocracy because Man United has more resources than, say, a Southampton.
That's exactly
what Southampton could, in theory, win the Premier League at any point. Like my comment earlier about Leicester City, same concept. They have less resources than, say, a Liverpool or a Man City or Chelsea. But, they managed to work their way up and win that league.
Exactly.
So the meritocracy would be based on the fact that you have a quality team that consistently comes in, year out, and competes for that top spot. And since Leicester came up and won the league, they've been in the top.
Yeah, exactly.
That managed would be purely based on meritocracy.
Yeah, and they continuously battle for that top 4 spot. But then you look at teams that consider themselves to be these super clubs. I could go on a rant forever about the number of these kind of teams who think they're super. They're not. AC Milan has been god-awful for 10 years. 10 years. Okay? They're not a super club. I'm sorry. They're not. They might be doing better now than they were, in the last decade. But the fact is that there have been times where some of these super clubs they don't qualify for Champions League.
As much of a fan as I am of Juve, they're not acting like a super league team right now.
Exactly. So as much as it is not on fair playing ground, no, not all the teams can spend as much money as the super leagues. I get it, but it's still in the end a meritocracy, and you still have the opportunity for something weird to happen, like Leicester City. That's a weird thing. Now, that hasn't happened in Italy, hasn't really happened much in Spain, and it doesn't happen very much in Germany. So I get the complaints. France is a little bit more open below, although PSG has sort of ascended into almost like that lock spot. But Lille's in first right now, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So there's a battle there. PSG just shouldn't get a shoe in if they were invited and accepted. So that's why this is ridiculous on its face. And Lalas doing his usual flapping of lips without actually using the meat between his ears before yapping. This is normal. This is absolutely normal. I think the most...
Tell us how you really feel about Lalas.
Yeah, I mean... he gets into this, and this actually brings me to a CNN report earlier today as well. Richard Quest on CNN, I think it was the British version, said, well, what does it say that owners and stakeholders can't do what they want with their teams anymore? And the guy replied, this is the former president of Real Madrid who's against the Super League, said, well, they can do whatever they want, but they're going to have to suffer the consequences. Mm-hmm. Exactly what it is. And don't get me wrong, I have no affection for UEFA and FIFA. I think they're both criminal enterprises, and they're acting like victims right now. But the truth of the matter is, they could do this. They're just going to have to suffer the consequences.
Yeah, and when it comes to UEFA and FIFA, I looked at this more like It's rich clubs aiming to take money from rich organizations, both of which are corrupt in a sense.
Yeah.
They're all fighting for that sponsorship, TV rights, all that type of money, and it's UEFA is just pissed. And maybe I'm looking at this incorrectly, and maybe there's some insight that I'm not privy to by any means. But my take would be is that UEFA is pissed because the top teams that draw in sponsors the TV rights for Champions League and Europa League are theoretically starting their own private school. And they're saying, this is my space. We're going to do our own thing. You do your own thing.
Yeah. And UEFA's basically saying, you want to do your own thing, you're either in or out. There's no half in here, half in there. No. You're either in with us or you're out with us. And I understand that viewpoint, but I got to say, watching Infantino today pontificating about, how they've always tried to do the right thing and everybody can come in and have an opinion and they'll listen to it and blah, blah, blah. No, they'll listen to the big boy clubs. That's who they listen to. And the fact that that's the thing that's so funny about this, they've been bowing down and sucking the toes of these big clubs for a long time, and they still can't get these billionaires on board 100%. They still want more of the pie, and they still want more games to make more money. And some people kept saying, well, this is, the big thing was stop the greed or whatever. Yeah, I mean, there's some of that. I get it. Although Lalas seemed to think greed was okay. He got all Gordon Gekko on us today or yesterday on a show. I'm fine with a striker being greedy, but I'm not real keen on these gazillionaires who are already, Florentino Perez saying, well, we got to do this because, the COVID and the pandemic and we're all losing money. Hey, knucklehead, we're all going through this. And we're suffering a lot worse than you are. The average fan is suffering through this a lot more than you are. The average restaurant worker is suffering through this more than you are. So suck it up, Toad.
And it's still my third largest yacht. No.
Yeah. And, for the big teams who are complaining, well, I spent so much money in the last transfer window. Well, stop spending so much money. All right? That's what happens when you have a business that's taking losses. You have to make some cuts. You have a bunch of players on your roster that are due, their contracts are up next season. Don't re-sign them. Let them go and go out and get, players that are less expensive. I don't know what to tell you, but you know what? These billionaires want handouts left and right for their teams. They can go themselves, personally.
I feel like with most businesses, small businesses, you're supposed to be able to cover your bills for like 3 months. That's about the money you're supposed to set aside in case something tragic happens. Right. I think when you're talking about an organization, a club that is spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year, if not close to billions a year, I think they need to look at more like, I need to be able to cover my funds for at least a year before we're really financially strapped. Well, so this is poor management. They just thought the good times were going to always continue to roll, and you have a pandemic that comes out and it really messes everything up across the board. And sports are no different.
And the pandemic didn't seem to affect Chelsea spending much last transfer window. They got Werner. They had already brought in Pulisic. They went out and got Havertz. They got Ziyech. I mean, give me a break. Okay, I guess this is not affecting Abramovich's wallet much, and he's one of the morons who originally signed on to this as well. So, it's Crybaby City here, and if you don't have the money to spend on the big players, just like 90% of the other teams in your pyramid, quit being a whiny ass and just deal with it. Make some cuts. Play with the players you're bringing up through your youth system. Whatever you got to do. But just because you're too big to fail doesn't mean we need to change the rules for you so you can go make money, so you can have a Super League where you bring home all the profit. You don't have to chop it up with all the other teams in the pyramid that are also playing in Champions League but aren't named, Chelsea, Juventus, AC Milan, Real Madrid, Barcelona. That's what this is all about. They don't want to share the money with the Ajaxes and the Anderlechts and the smaller teams that are in Champions League. They want it all for themselves. Screw Young Boys and all the other. They want the pie. And this would allow them to keep a bigger piece of the pie with the help of JP Morgan kicking in $5 billion. So shame on JP Morgan for getting involved with this. Another company who's clueless about what soccer fans want, as well as all the American owners who are on the chairmanship.
I don't think that's necessarily JP Morgan's concern as far as the soccer fans are concerned. They're probably just looking at this as there's more money going into our pockets in the end.
Oh yeah,
they could care less because they don't own a league, they don't own a team. They don't care. They're just investing in something they think is going to make them a lot of money. So they're just a greedy billionaire company that's looking to make more money.
There is no doubt that that CEO of JP Morgan, Chase, as you reminded me earlier today, because they are a monopoly now. Well, I'm sorry, they were too big before, so they had to get bigger. So they combined with Chase. So I'm sure that guy was on the phone with Dippy Joe Glazer and baseball-minded John Henry and stupid Stan Kroenke. And they all said, hey, we got this great thing we're coming up with this guy named Florentino Perez. Oh, yeah, I forgot you know him, too, because he's one of us. And we're in this little crony group together. We're in this cabal, and we're going to make this happen. You want to get on board and put $5 billion up? That would be great. You could be the main sponsor. It won't be Heineken anymore. It'll be you.
Do you think Glazer told JP Morgan and Chase that, oh, don't worry, the fans have been bitching at me for years. This will be a breeze. We'll just make our money. We'll be good.
Yeah, Kroenke should be used to getting bitched at this point, and so should the Glazers, because, ever since Fergie left Man United, they've been a joke. Arsenal was worse than a joke, and the teams that were invited in. Can you imagine if this was started in the 80s? So the original clubs would be Nottingham Forest, Blackburn Rovers, Stuttgart, or it was started in the early 2000s when Stuttgart was winning the league in Germany. I mean, these are all teams that are now playing several levels or at least one level down.
And I don't follow the history of BPL that closely because, quite frankly, I just don't care. But I did read somewhere though that is they made the comment about the Leeds versus Liverpool game, and Leeds has as many champions as Liverpool, and one more than Tottenham.
Yeah, exactly.
I found that pretty funny.
Yeah, and so if the this Super League had been started back when Leeds was kicking everybody's butt, then Leeds would be the auto in every year for the Super League. Schalke was always one of the clubs that people talked about back in the day when they started talking about the Super League, who would be, a part of the auto 15. And look at them. They just got relegated today.
Yeah.
Relegated.
It's because they keep benching Hoppy. Just saying.
And guess who's going to take their place, it looks like, because Greuther Fürth jumped into the auto promotion spot today with another win.
You're saying Green might see some Bundesliga one time?
I think we may see it some Bundesliga.
And he'll get up there and all of a sudden he'll be called into a national team game. I'm what's the difference between point A and point B there? Why has he not got called in yet? That's my big thing.
Yeah, Greuther Fürth is going to definitely have to do some spending if they want to stay up in the Bundesliga, because I think Green is probably quality, and they have 2 or 3 or so players they can probably depend on to be starters, but outside of that, it's going to be painful. So, do you have anything else on your list of things to add for this? Because I've branded my rant.
I was watching our friend Peter, the 11 Yanks video.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm not going to go into too much on what he was going. He was very emotional on the day, obviously, as most people were.
Yeah.
I will say one thing to him. His stereotypical American accent could use a little work. There's one little thing at the very beginning. He did the, "Oh, what do you think I'm doing here?" Type of voice. I'm it needs a little more twang, to be that stereotypical American accent. Let's go with that.
we could help him out on there. I think a little bit, but he's got a funky, weird ass accent anyhow, and he claims that it has nothing to do with the fact that he's, from. I guess he lived all over the world growing up.
That, So, he had a lot of good points, and I know he did a lot of it. He was talking, like I said, with a lot of emotion, stake on it, and he did take a point where he put the emotion aside and focused on what people are going to say about it and logically takes on it. But I mean, it was a good 50 some odd minutes.
It was long.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was a fun time to watch.
No, I mean, the guy's always pretty much stripe on it, and I know I pick on the fact that he says smash the button, all that, but I mean, got nothing else to pick on Peter about, so I have to pick on something. But
the way I like the video.
Smash the like button. I mean, lightly tap it. I mean, his great show, great summary of what's going on. Yep. Yeah, he seemed really. I'm sure I'm coming off as emotional too, but honestly, I'm just excited about this, not in just a negative way. I'm not being emotional about it. Like, if this actually happened, like, whatever. At this point, I'm so used to stupid things happening in soccer, like having a 40-person World Cup, 40-team World Cup. I mean, stupid crap is happening constantly. Qatar gets a World Cup because they bought it. Russia gets a World Cup because they bought it. I'm so used to corruption and just silliness at this point from FIFA and UEFA. What's another additional silliness? I mean, to me, it's no surprise, but I am glad that this seems to be up in smoke at this point. Or somebody put it on ESPN today, it's the greatest own goal of all time.
And all jokes aside, like we mention all the time, make sure you like the video, subscribe to us, and leave a comment. Again, we like communicating with everybody, like talking things through. And I feel like even though this topic is dead in the water for the most part, and maybe for the next decade or so, who knows? I feel like there's still going to be plenty of conversations about it, and especially what the leagues may take. The consequences for the league, for the teams who are going to participate, when they come back to the domestic league here, what's going to happen to them. People are talking fines, point deductions, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, there could be some penalties for this. I think it would be in UEFA's best interest to not punish too much, but they certainly now own the hammer. Like, they know this was the bluff, right? This is the big bluff by these super clubs, and they failed. And there was such a backlash. They know that the super clubs don't have this in their back pocket anymore, and they can't use it to extort better deals for themselves going forward. Hey, Arsenal, you want to be in the Champions League? Then stop finishing 7th and 8th in the league, okay? And quit whining. Jesus. Anyhow, yes, definitely hit like, and it is cocktail hour. If you haven't started, we have. And, on my end, probably some other things too. But if you haven't started, start now. And we're going to move on to the next part of the show.